Welcome to today's Lost Souls, where we bring you the most impactful and unforgettable stories from around the world. Today, we remember the lives of remarkable individuals whose legacies continue to inspire and resonate. From iconic musicians to trailblazing activists, join us as we celebrate their extraordinary contributions and bid farewell to those who have left an indelible mark on our lives. Stay tuned for a journey through their incredible stories.
Kenneth Washington. Preta Gil, the vibrant Brazilian singer, television presenter, actress, and feminist activist, died on July 20, 2025, in New York after a courageous battle with colorectal cancer. Daughter of the legendary musician and former Brazilian culture minister Gilberto Gil and actress Sandra Gadelha, Preta became not only a music icon but a powerful voice for social causes and marginalized communities. Born Preta Maria Gadelha Gilmara on August 8, 1974, in Rio de Janeiro. Preta was raised amid Brazil's rich musical and cultural scene. From a young age, she immersed herself in music, working as a producer before launching her own artistic career. She released her debut album, Prata Porter, in 2003, a project that celebrated her tropicalista roots and MPB, música popular brasileira, coinciding with the period when her father was serving as culture minister. Over the years, she produced several more acclaimed albums: Preta, 2005, Su Como Su, 2012, and Todas as Cores, 2017, collaborating with luminaries including Gal Costa, Pablo Vittar, and Marília Mendonça. She also thrilled audiences with energetic live releases such as Noite Preta 2010 and the carnival-themed Bloco da Preta 2014. Beyond her musical success, Preta Gil was an outspoken advocate for women's rights, the LGBTQ community, and the fight against racism. Her activism often brought her into the spotlight, sometimes controversially, as she challenged social taboos by being open about her bisexuality and posing nude on the cover of her first album. Her authenticity inspired countless fans and encouraged open conversations about diversity and body positivity in Brazilian culture. Throughout her career, Preta appeared in popular Globo soap operas and developed her own talk show. She also found success on reality television, serving as a coach on The Voice Brazil. Her dynamic presence bridged generations, drawing both young listeners and longtime fans. Preta was first diagnosed with colon cancer in January 2023. She pursued aggressive treatment in Brazil, enduring surgery, chemotherapy, and radiotherapy, and later sought experimental and specialized care in the United States after her cancer recurred. She spent months seeking hope at centers like Memorial Sloan Kettering and the Virginia Cancer Institute, but bravely documented her health journey for her fans, forming a supportive community that mourns her deeply. She is survived by her son, Francisco, born in 1995 from her first marriage to actor Otávio Moller, and a granddaughter. At the time of her passing, plans were being made for her repatriation to Brazil and a public wake in Rio de Janeiro, where family, friends, and fans would pay tribute. Preta Gil's artistry, activism, and indomitable spirit leave an enduring impact on Brazilian culture. Her legacy is one of joy, resilience, and boldness in the pursuit of equality. Her voice will not be forgotten. Chuck Mangione. Chuck Mangione, the acclaimed jazz flugelhorn player and composer whose enduring 1978 hit, Feels So Good, became an anthem across generations, died peacefully in his sleep at his home in Rochester, New York. On July 22, 2025, Mangione's passing marks the end of a celebrated career that spanned more than 6 decades and bridged the worlds of jazz, pop, and popular culture. Born Charles Frank Mangione on November 29, 1940, in Rochester to Italian-American parents, Mangione was immersed in music from an early age. His family's love for jazz brought legendary musicians like Dizzy Gillespie into their home, which profoundly influenced him. He began trumpet lessons after being inspired by the film Young Man with a Horn and, alongside his pianist brother Gap, formed the Jazz Brothers, performing with giants of the genre. After graduating from the Eastman School of Music, Mangione joined Art Blakey's Jazz Messengers in the 1960s, honing his skills as both a performer and composer. His innovative style blending pop sensibilities, electric flourishes, and the lush sound of the Flugelhorn helped him soar to mainstream fame. The 1977 album and eponymous single Feel So Good not only reached No. 4 on the Billboard Hot 100, but also became a pop culture staple, instantly recognizable to listeners regardless of generation. Throughout his prolific recording career, Mangione released over 30 albums, received 2 Grammy Awards, including for Bellavia and the Children of Sanchez soundtrack, and earned 14 Grammy nominations overall. He became especially popular for composing Olympic themes. Chase the Clouds Away for the 1976 Summer Olympics in Montreal and Give It All You Got for the 1980 Winter Olympics in Lake Placid, which he performed at the closing ceremonies before a global audience. Mangione was not just a musician. He became a touchstone in American culture, known for his signature long hair, beard, and trademark felt fedora. His recurring guest appearances on the animated series King of the Hill endeared him to a whole new generation, blending humor with musical legacy. Even as jazz evolved and critics debated its direction, Mangione remained devoted to reaching new listeners, championing melodic accessibility and heartfelt artistry. Beyond the stage, Mangione was an educator, philanthropist, and proud family man. He taught at his alma mater, the Eastman School of Music, and used proceeds from his music to support charitable causes, including care for the elderly in his community. Chuck Mangione's legacy is one of joy, innovation, and unforgettable melody. He brought the sound of jazz into millions of homes and hearts, leaving behind a catalog that will continue to inspire and uplift for generations to come. Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan, born Terry Bollea, the legendary professional wrestler whose charisma, unmatched presence, and signature Hulkamania brand made him one of the most iconic figures in sports entertainment, died on July 24, 2025, at his home in Clearwater, Florida. Emergency responders were dispatched to his residence after a 911 call reported a potential cardiac arrest. Hogan received urgent medical treatment on the scene before being transported to the hospital, where he was pronounced dead at approximately 11:17 a.m. The cause of death is believed to be cardiac arrest. Authorities confirmed there was no foul play involved. Hogan rose to superstardom during the 1980s, revolutionizing professional wrestling by transforming it from a niche interest into mainstream family entertainment. Dubbed the Immortal, and famous for his bandana, blonde handlebar mustache, and 24-inch pythons, Hogan spurred a generation of fans with iconic catchphrases like, "What you gonna do when Hulkamania runs wild on you?" and encouraged millions to train, say, "Your prayers and eat your vitamins." His magnetic rivalries with Macho Man Randy Savage, Andre the Giant, and Ric Flair helped turn WA, then WF, into a pop culture juggernaut. Beyond the ring, Hogan became a household name thanks to his forays into film, music, and reality television. He starred in movies such as Rocky III, as Thunderlips, and his own series, Hogan Knows Best. His impact continued in later decades as he championed wrestling's crossover onto the global entertainment stage, earning 2 inductions into the WWE Hall of Fame. Despite his outsized success, Hogan's life was also marked by controversy, including a publicized suspension from WWE in 2015 due to a leaked recording of him using racist language. He was reinstated in 2018 and ultimately remembered as a trailblazer whose influence shaped professional wrestling's popularity. Hogan spent his later years grappling with health issues relating to his back and heart, having recently undergone surgery and reportedly recovering at home. Just weeks before his death, tributes poured in from around the world following news of his passing. Fellow wrestlers, Hollywood stars, and even U.S. President Donald Trump recognized Hogan's immense influence on not just wrestling, but the broader cultural landscape. At the time of his passing, Hogan was survived by his wife, Sky, and children Brooke and Nick. Rene Kirby. Rene Kirby, an American actor best known for his role as Walt in the 2001 Farrelly Brothers comedy Shallow Hal, died on July 11, 2025, in Burlington, Vermont. He passed away at the University of Vermont Medical Center after a 2-month hospitalization due to complications involving his kidneys, bladder, and esophagus, along with multiple infections. Kirby had previously survived throat cancer, but lost his ability to speak after his larynx was removed. Born on February 27, 1955, in Burlington, Vermont, Rene Kirby was born with spina bifida, a congenital condition that affects the spine and can cause scoliosis, paralysis of the legs, and difficulty walking. Despite these challenges, Kirby demonstrated remarkable resilience and athleticism in his youth, earning state championships in gymnastics, swimming, and skiing. He learned to walk with his hands as a toddler because of the paralysis in his legs. Before pursuing acting, Kirby worked for 20 years at IBM. His transition to film came after being discovered by director Peter Farrelly in 1999, while Farrelly was shooting Me, Myself, and Irene in Vermont. Farrelly cast Kirby in Shallow Hal, where he starred alongside Gwyneth Paltrow and Jack Black. Kirby's portrayal of Walt, a character who also lived with spina bifida, was notable for its authenticity and heartfelt depth. Rene Kirby also appeared in the Farrelly Brothers' Stuck on You, 2003, playing the character Phil Rupp, and had a minor role in the HBO series Carnival. His performances resonated due to his genuine representation of disability, breaking stereotypes in Hollywood. Kirby was known among those close to him for his determination and positive outlook, famously quoted by his brother John as saying, "You don't have to stand up to stand out." He leaves behind his family and is remembered for his courage, talent, and a inspirational example he set in both the entertainment industry and life. Camila Trevisol. Camila Trevisol, a Brazilian rodeo queen and social media influencer, died on July 23, 2025, after a courageous battle with a rare and aggressive form of bone cancer called Ewing sarcoma. Diagnosed initially as a child after an injury revealed a cancerous tumor in her thigh bone, Camila lived with the illness for 9 years. Despite going into remission, she faced a second diagnosis in 2023. Throughout her treatment, she remained active in the rodeo community, participating in events alongside prominent country music stars and becoming a celebrated figure in the rodeo world. Born in her hometown of Americana, north of São Paulo, Camila was crowned queen of the Jaguaruna Rodeo Festival in 2024 and was twice honored as the Inspiration Queen at the prestigious Festa de Paio de Americana rodeo event. Her social media presence grew to over 31,000 followers, where she shared her journey with authenticity, promoting resilience and joy despite her health struggles. Camila's influence extended beyond rodeo arenas. She used her platform to inspire others, emphasizing the importance of enjoying life regardless of challenges. Her bright spirit and determination touched many fans and peers, inspiring support for cancer awareness, especially among young adults. The rodeo and influencer communities mourned her passing, with many tributes highlighting her legacy as a Tisve beacon of hope and strength. Her family described her as a source of joy, whose impact will endure through the memories and inspiration she leaves behind. Camila Trevisol's life story is one of courage, passion for rural traditions, and the power of positivity in the face of adversity. Preta Gil. Preta Gil, the vibrant and influential Brazilian singer, actress, television presenter, and feminist activist, died on July 20th, 2025, in New York City after a brave 2-year battle with colorectal colon cancer. She was the daughter of famed Brazilian musician and former culture minister Gilberto Gil and actress Sandra Gadelha. Preta's death came as she was receiving advanced treatment at the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York and was reportedly on her way to return to Brazil when she fell ill and was rushed to the hospital, where she passed away. Born Preta Maria Gadelha Gil Moreira on August 8, 1974, in Rio de Janeiro, Preta grew up at the heart of Brazil's rich cultural and musical heritage. She launched her music career with her debut album Prato e Porter in 2003, at a time when her father was serving as culture minister. She went on to release several more albums, including Preta, 2005, Su Como Su, 2012, and Todas as Cores, 2017, and gained acclaim not only for her lively, eclectic musical style, a blend of MPB, música popular brasileira, tropicalia, samba, and funk, but also for her outspoken advocacy on social issues. Throughout her career, Preta was a powerful voice for women's rights, racial equality, LGBTQ+ advocacy, and body positivity. She was openly bisexual and used her platform to challenge social taboos, including from posing nude on the cover of her first album, which at the time stirred controversy. Beyond music, she appeared in popular Brazilian soap operas, hosted a talk show, and was a prominent media personality. Her health battle began in early 2023 when she was diagnosed with colon cancer. She underwent surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation therapy in Brazil, initially achieving remission before the cancer returned with metastases affecting her lymph nodes, peritoneum, and ureter. In mid-2025, she traveled to the U.S. for specialized care but succumbed to the illness at age 50. Preta is survived by her adult son Francisco Muller, part of the musical collective The Gilsons, and a granddaughter. Her passing triggered an outpouring of grief in Brazil and worldwide, with fans, fellow artists, and public figures remembering her vibrant artistry, fearless activism, and inspiring resilience. Plans for a public wake and tributes were announced to take place in Rio de Janeiro, honoring her legacy. Preta Gil's life and work left an enduring impact on Brazilian culture and beyond, celebrated for her joyful music, bold advocacy, and the breaking of barriers in entertainment and social causes. Her passing marks the loss of a luminous figure who championed diversity, inclusion, and joy throughout her courageous life. Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Goldberg was born on November 13, 1955 in Manhattan, New York City, into a world that would challenge and sharpen her instincts long before audiences knew her as Whoopi Goldberg. Raised primarily by her mother, Emma Johnson, a fiercely determined nurse and teacher who juggled multiple jobs to keep the household afloat, Karen grew up in the Chelsea Elliott houses, a public housing complex where resourcefulness wasn't optional. It was survival. Her father, Robert James Johnson, Jr. was largely absent, and that absence quietly imprinted a lesson she would carry into adulthood. Family is something you build and fiercely protect, not something you can always count on being given. From an early age, she wrestled with dyslexia, an undiagnosed, misunderstood barrier that led teachers to label her slow. Instead of dimming her light, it taught her to listen harder, to memorize more deeply, and to trust intuition over rigid systems that didn't know how to see her. She found sanctuary in performing, gravitating toward characters, stories, and voices, not because someone told her she could, but because it was the one arena where chaos made sense and her imagination had no ceiling. Humor wasn't just a skill, it was oxygen, a tool to pierce through indifference and connect with people who might otherwise pass you by. As a teenager, she left high school and, in time, New York. She drifted west, landing in San Diego and then Berkeley during the 1970s, embracing counterculture, activism, and the kind of small, scrappy theater where the distance between audience and performer can be measured in inches, heartbeats, and sweat. She worked a string of unconventional jobs: a bricklayer, a bank teller, even a beautician in a mortuary, each one deepening her empathy and sharpening her comic timing. These weren't detours. They were building blocks for the unfiltered honesty and earthy humanity that would become her signature on stage and screen. Somewhere along that path, Karen Johnson morphed into Whoopi Goldberg. The Whoopi nickname came from an early reputation for carrying a whoopee cushion level of humor and fearlessness into rehearsal rooms. Goldberg, as she often quipped, reflected a stage-savvy practicality. Her mother felt the name might open doors in a business where identity politics and perceptions could be as decisive as talent. The alchemy of those two halves, a kinetic, disarming candor fused with a strategic understanding of show business, set the stage for a career that would bend categories and rewrite expectations. Before Broadway, before Spielberg, before The View and the EGOT, there was the one-woman show, raw, unfiltered, born from lived experience and social observation. In tiny rooms and black box theaters, she created a gallery of characters, funny, aching, complicated, and undeniably human. Those characters weren't just performances. They were voices from neighborhoods that rarely made it into the mainstream. People she'd known, fragments of herself she'd elevated into art. That laboratory of risk and truth-telling would soon explode into national attention. But its DNA, the grit, the empathy, the political edge, never left her. Whoopi Goldberg's explosion into mainstream consciousness began with the ferocious originality of her one-woman show, first nurtured in small California theaters and then supercharged when director Mike Nichols helped shepherd it to Broadway in 1984. On that stage, she inhabited a constellation of characters, funny, wounded, incisive, who spoke to race, class, gender, disability, and the uneasy fractures of American life. The show wasn't a calling card. It was a manifesto, and it landed her a Grammy for Best Comedy Album, the first jewel in what would later become her EGOT crown. Among the captivated was Steven Spielberg, who saw in Goldberg a once-in-a-generation performer and caster as seen in The Color Purple 1985. Her performance, raw, resilient, and steeped in emotional truth, earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress and announced that she wasn't just a comedian or a character actor. She was a dramatic force of nature. The global superstardom came with Ghost 1990, as Oda Mae Brown, a fast-talking fake medium who unexpectedly becomes a real conduit. Goldberg stole scenes with split-second timing and bottomless warmth. She won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress, becoming the first black woman to do so since Hattie McDaniel in 1940, and cemented herself as box office gold. Then came Sister Act 1992, an electric, joyous hit that showcased her comedic leadership and mass appeal. It became one of the highest-grossing comedies of its era and spawned a sequel that only deepened her status as a pop culture fixture. Between these tentpoles, she stacked a diverse filmography: Jumpin' Jack Flash, Clara's Heart, The Long Walk, Home, Karina, Boys on the Side, each one expanding her range from screwball energy to tender drama. Parallel to her film career, Goldberg embedded herself in the fabric of television. As Gwen on Star Trek The Next Generation, 1988-1993, she played the serene, enigmatic barkeep whose wisdom anchored some of the show's most philosophical episodes, a role she personally sought because as a child, seeing Michelle Nichols on. The original Star Trek had told her that black women belonged in the future. On the live stage, she shifted into producing, earning a Tony Award as one of the producers of Thoroughly Modern Millie 2002, with an Emmy for television work, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. She joined the ultra-exclusive club of EGOT winners, one of the very few entertainers in history to achieve that sweep. Goldberg's cultural footprint grew even larger when she became a four-time host of the Academy Awards. 1994, 1996, 1999, 2002, the first black woman to ever take that mantle. Her hosting combined mischief audacity and an almost vaudevillian understanding of timing, proof that she could command the most watched stage in Hollywood with ease. Meanwhile, her philanthropic muscle flexed through comic relief telethons alongside Robin Williams and Billy Crystal, raising millions to fight homelessness and bringing social issues into living rooms with equal parts laughter and urgency. In 2007, Goldberg stepped into a new era as the moderator of The View. The platform gave her a daily microphone to mix humor, hard experience, and unapologetic opinion on politics, race, gender, and pop culture. Love her or challenge her, audiences tuned in because her viewpoint was unmistakably hers, seasoned by decades of being both inside and outside the center of power. Over the years, she kept acting voice roles, The Lion King Shenzi, Prestige Television, The Stand, and a heartfelt return to the Star Trek universe in Purred, while doubling down on producing, writing, and mentoring the Thruween from Broadway to daytime TV, from R2's drama to blockbuster comedy, was unmistakable. Whoopi Goldberg insisted on being creatively unboxed, commercially undeniable, and culturally essential. Fame never insulated Whoopi Goldberg from the vulnerabilities of the body. Long before she became a household name, she was already negotiating dyslexia, an invisible barrier that forced her to rewire how she learned lines, processed information, and communicated confidence in rooms that often misread her. What looked from the outside like improvisational ease was frequently the result of obsessive memorization, workarounds, and a deep trust in instinct. That discipline, born of necessity, became a health survival skill decades later when sudden crisis demanded the same focus, patience, and stubborn will. In early 2019, Goldberg disappeared from The View for weeks, and speculation swelled. When she returned, she revealed the truth. She had battled a life-threatening case of double pneumonia and sepsis. She later said plainly that she had been close to dying. The announcement wasn't packaged as melodrama. It was a sober acknowledgement of fragility from someone millions watched for strength and candor. Viewers witnessed her transition from the brink back to the table. Slower, careful, still cracking jokes, but visibly aware that health is a lease, not a guarantee. Recovery wasn't instant. She spoke about shortness of breath, fatigue, and the need to literally rebuild stamina, unromantic. Incremental work that doesn't trend, but determines whether you can do live television 5 days a week. The ordeal recalibrated her relationship to time and rest. It also shifted audience perception. Goldberg, long a figure of indestructible poise, reminded people that resilience is not the absence of crisis, but the disciplined return afterward. Then came sciatica, a nerve pain so severe in 2021 that she arrived on The View using a walker and talked about it on air. Many stars would have hidden it. She chose visibility. That choice mattered. Older women, black women, people living with chronic pain, groups regularly erased or minimized in popular culture, saw someone normalize assistive devices, physical limitation, and the slow, frustrating patience of healing by refusing to disguise pain. She turned daytime TV into a brief masterclass on aging with candor instead of shame. The pandemic years layered on yet another challenge. Goldberg contracted COVID-19 and isolated from the show, underscoring again the vulnerability of even the most public, seemingly untouchable figures. She navigated the now familiar dance of remote appearances, medical caution, and public transparency about risk. She didn't brand herself a spokesperson for Long CO or become a medical pundit. Instead, she kept the focus clear. Health is communal, and responsibility is part of fame. Her approach to pain management also surfaced in her entrepreneurial life. In 2016, she co-founded Whoopi and Maya, a cannabis company aimed at providing relief, especially for menstrual cramps, through THC and CBD-based products. The venture was as much philosophy as business, an argument for alternative, less stigmatized forms of relief in a culture quick to judge women's pain as exaggeration. The company eventually shut down in 2020, but the statement it made that women's discomfort deserves innovative, dignified solutions remains part of her public health ethos. Alongside these more visible episodes, she's been consistently open about the mundane but meaningful realities of aging, changing eyesight, the fatigue of constant travel, the everyday recalibrations that come with a long career under lights and scrutiny. She's pushed back on body-shaming culture, rejected the obsession with snapping back, and insisted that the worth of an artist isn't measured in pounds lost, wrinkles erased, or energy resembled from youth. What ties all of these threads together is a practical spirituality. The sense that the body is a biography, and being honest about its edits, revisions, and emergency rewrites helps everyone read their own more clearly. Goldberg's health narrative is not a spotless triumph arc. It's a ledger of scares, comebacks, adaptations, and boundary setting. And because she lives so much of it in public, it becomes more than anecdote. It becomes permission for others to speak up, slow down, or seek help without apology. Loss has been a recurring undertow in Whoopi Goldberg's life, arriving in waves that reshaped her voice, her priorities, and the cadence of how she shows up. In public. In 2010, she lost her mother, Emma Johnson, the fierce, steady center who had worked multiple jobs to keep the family afloat, and who in many ways was the unseen co-author of Whoopi's resilience. Goldberg spoke often about how that death hollowed out a room inside her that no accolade could ever refill. The grief was not performative, not a moment for ratings. It was a tectonic shift. She took time away, recalibrated, and returned to the table on The View with a quieter gravity, more insistent than ever that humor and humanity are not opposites, but partners. 5 years later, in 2015, she lost her brother, Clyde Johnson, her only sibling. The shock compounded the unresolved ache of losing her mother, and again, she stepped back from The View to mourn. When she returned, she didn't weaponize vulnerability for effect. Instead, she spoke about grief the way most people experience it, intermittently, unexpectedly, and without a fixed timetable. That willingness to normalize mourning on daytime television, no less, offered viewers a language for their own losses, especially those who rarely see Black women afforded the right to visible, unhurried grief in mainstream media. Her professional family brought its own heartaches. Robin Williams, her comic relief comrade in arms, died in 2014, and Goldberg honored him with raw affection. Not as a legend first, but as a friend whose generosity, speed of mind, and compassion elevated everyone around him. Patrick sees her. Ghost star, died in 2009, and she openly credited him with advocating for her casting, a decision that helped her win the Oscar that changed the arc of her career. Mike Nichols, the director who ushered her one-woman show to Broadway and who recognized her genius before the industry fully did, passed in 2014. She mourned him as a mentor who taught her that the sharpest comedy is rooted in unbearable truth. Michelle Nichols, whose presence on Star Trek helped the young Karen Johnson understand that Black women belonged in the future, and whose legacy Goldberg honored by joining the next generation. died in 2022, closing a circle of representation that had profoundly shaped her sense of possibility. There were other good BS that never made splashy headlines but left dents. Collaborators from theater days, activists she marched beside, entertainers who shared the same circuit of charity, events, late-night sets, and indie projects. Each time Goldberg reappeared on air as someone who believed that remembering is an ethical act. She often used her platform to name the people gone, to contextualize their impact, and to remind audiences that legacies aren't sustained by platitudes, but by continued work, generosity, and fidelity to the values the departed embodied. Not all losses in her life took the form of death. She's been candid about marriages that ended, friendships that shifted under the pressure of fame, and the complicated endings that come with long careers, projects shelved, companies closed. Like Whoopi and Maya, ideas that outlived their business model, but not their moral relevance. She has framed those endings as part of an artist's metabolism. You build, you release, you grieve, you rebuild differently. Crucially, grief sharpened her activism, whether advocating for LGBTQ+ rights, reproductive freedom, racial justice, or homelessness relief. Goldberg has repeatedly connected remembrance to responsibility. If the people who taught you how to care are gone, the most faithful tribute is to keep caring louder. In her eulogies, formal and informal, she doesn't just close chapters. She assigns homework. Remember the work. Continue the fight. Tell the stories, right? Today, Whoopi Goldberg stands as something rare in American culture, a daily presence who also feels like a decade-or-so-long institution. As moderator of The View, a chair she has occupied since 2007, she brings the weight of an EGOT career to a panel show built on fast takes, live disagreement, and the unpredictability of real time. Her function isn't just to steer conversation, it's to translate experience. She routinely reframes hot-button stories through the lens of race, gender, class, aging, disability, and the lived realities of people who don't often get microphones. Even when audiences disagree with her, they recognize the through line. She's speaking from a lifetime of being inside the machine and outside its assumptions at the same time. Creatively, she never sealed the vault. She continues to act on television, on streaming platforms, and in voice roles, choosing parts that let her toggle between gravitas and sly humor. Her return to the Star Trek universe, as Jinan reaffirmed, a promise she made to herself as a girl who saw Nichols on TV. The future must include Black women in positions of wisdom and authority. She also revisited epic material with The Stand, embracing the archetypal role of Mother Abigail, proof that her mystical calm can command genre storytelling as confidently as it does live daytime TV. In recent years, she's leaned into voiceover and animation, documentary narration, and selective cameo appearances, formats that let her preserve energy, curate projects, and still keep a creative pulse humming beneath the demands of a daily broadcast. She writes humor, memoir, social commentary, advice, often in partnership with collaborators who share her appetite for blunt truth. Books like The Unqualified Hostess and Two Old Broads reflect a practical, slightly mischievous philosophy of aging. Don't pretend it isn't happening. Don't surrender your curiosity. And don't let anyone assign you to the margins because you've accumulated birthdays. In interviews, she has been frank that she's not interested in another marriage, a stance consistent with the independence she's championed for decades. Family for her is more about the daughter, grandchildren, and chosen community she invests in than about legal bonds. Entrepreneurially, she has experimented, succeeded, and failed in public, most visibly with Whoopi and Maya, her now closed cannabis company that tried to stigmatize relief for women's pain. The business ended, but the thesis remained. Listen to the body. believe women when they say they hurt, and innovate where the market refuses to. That pragmatic activism continues to surface in her philanthropy and platforming of causes from LGBTQ+ rights and racial justice to reproductive freedom and homelessness relief, causes she amplified long before celebrity activism became a marketing lane. Culturally, she's also become a kind of elder stateswoman of comics and actors, someone younger performers look to for permission to be themselves loudly, to mix forms, to step from studio films to scrappy theater without apology. She mentors publicly through producing, platforming, hiring, and privately through advice, advocacy, and the kind of behind-the-scenes calls that change careers. Hosting the Oscars 4 times, producing on Broadway, carrying blockbuster comedies, anchoring prestige dramas, and presiding over daytime political debate. Her resume functions like a map for artists who refuse to be categorized. Day to day, her work rhythm reflects a hard-won equilibrium. She has talked about setting limits, conserving energy, and acknowledging pain. Lessons hammered home by pneumonia, sepsis, sciatica, and COVID. She shows up when she can show up fully and when she can't. She names the reason and returns when ready. That transparency about absence, rest, and recovery is itself a legacy. Proof that longevity in entertainment is not about pretending you're ageless, but about adjusting, delegating, and choosing your battles. What remains unfinished? Plenty. There's the long gestating Sister Act 3, which she has repeatedly expressed interest in making. The continued evolution of The View in a polarized media landscape, and the possibility of more producing, elevating stories and voices that mirror the radical empathy of her early stage days. And there's the quieter legacy work, archiving, curating, and ensuring that future generations understand not just the role she played, but the doors she kicked open and the models of success she rendered newly possible. Black woman, dyslexic, comedian, dramatic lead, Oscar host, Broadway producer, daytime anchor, cannabis entrepreneur, sci-fi sage, activist, grandmother. In short, Whoopi Goldberg today is both present tense and permanent tense. She is still doing the work. Arguing, laughing, acting, writing, mentoring, and she is also already part of the scaffolding of American entertainment history. The question she seems most interested in answering now isn't what can I win next, but how can I use everything I've learned to make the road behind me clearer, wider, and kinder for whoever comes after. The Color Purple, 1985, stands as the seismic proof of concept that Whoopi Goldberg could anchor prestige drama with uncompromising emotional clarity. As they say, she carried a narrative of generational trauma, resilience, and self-actualization that challenged Hollywood's narrow assumptions about who could lead an epic. Economically, it demonstrated the market viability of black female dramas on a global scale. Culturally, it reframed mainstream audience relationship to Alice Walker's story, expanding the film industry's vocabulary for portraying black womanhood beyond stereotypes. The Best Actress Oscar nomination wasn't just personal validation. It recalibrated the casting calculus for studios evaluating dramatic vehicles for black women. With Ghost, 1990, Goldberg re-engineered the archetype of the comic relief sidekick. O.D. Brown is a cornerstone of the film's tonal balance, making the supernatural premise emotionally legible and commercially irresistible. Her Oscar-winning performance proved that comedic characters, particularly black women, written with verve and agency, could catalyze box office momentum and awards prestige simultaneously. It also widened the aperture for comedic actresses to be considered serious craftsmen, a through-in later mirrored by other performers who straddle comedy and drama. Sister Act, 1992, and Sister Act 2, Back in the Habit, 1993, shifted another axis, the studio comedy as a platform for women-led ensembles, cross-generational narratives, and mosaic-driven redemption arcs outside the romance template. Goldberg wasn't just the star. She was the gravitational center that led an entire cast of women, many older, many women of color, shine in a feel-good 4-quadrant hit. The franchise's longevity, spin-offs, stage musicals, and continuing demand for a third film illustrates the durable business case for a formalized comedy, IP anchored by a singular comic persona. As Guinan on Star Trek: The Next Generation, Goldberg challenged and expanded genre boundaries. Science fiction on television had rarely given a black woman a role of philosophical authority and narrative gravitas removed from tropo-laden strong or sassy shorthand. Guinan's narrative function as counsel, conscience, and temporal anchor modeled a quietly radical representation. The wise black woman as futurist, strategist, and moral compass unbound by service to a white protagonist's arc. Her later return to Star Trek reinforced the character's intergenerational resonance. In The Long Walk Home, 1990, Karina, 1994, and Boys on the Side, 1995, Goldberg helped normalize a template for character-driven, socially conscious dramas and comedies fronted by women, often addressing race, illness, caregiving, and chosen family with tonal elasticity. These films didn't dominate box office charts like Sister Act, but they became durable cable staples and syllabus fixtures, evidence of a mid-90s Hollywood willing for a time to bankroll nuanced women-led stories with crossover appeal. Her voice role as Shenzi in The Lion King, 1994, foreshadowed a now standard practice. A-list actors headlining animated blockbusters for adult cross-demographic pull. Goldberg's vocal presence showed how comedians could weaponize rhythm, phrasing, and timing to make animated antagonists charismatic, funny, and unsettling. Another avenue for career longevity via voice work that she continues to leverage. Hosting the Oscars, 1994, 1996, 1999, 2002 was more than ceremony. It was an economic and cultural experiment in putting a black woman at the helm of Hollywood's most watched night 4 times. Her success affirmed that star power plus authorship over tone could stabilize an increasingly precarious telecast model. She calibrated irreverence without alienation, activism without sermonizing, and spectacle without self-betrayal. Mechanics' later hosts would repeatedly try to replicate. Her producing work, culminating in a Tony for Thoroughly Modern Millie, signals another form of influence, pipeline control. By standing behind projects, not just in front of them, Goldberg entered the structural conversation about what stories get funded, who gets cast, and which creative risks receive Broadway's institutional stamp. In doing so, she modeled a path for comedians and film actors to convert celebrity capital into producing leverage. Finally, her multi-decade tenure on The View reframed the idea of a role itself. The show is not a scripted performance, but Goldberg's moderation is nonetheless a creative labor, managing live conflict, injecting humor without trivializing stakes, and delivering teachable context in compressed high-heat cycles. In terms of impact, her views arguably rival her film work. They've made her a daily civic educator, a lightning rod for debate, and a bridge between entertainment and political literacy for millions.